Hey guys, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer, functional aesthetics EC, helping average guys perform better inside and outside the gym. So today's video, I'm going to be explaining the best fat burning workout, the design for the best fat burning workout. And before you click away thinking that, hey bro, this is 2024 and haven't you heard that abs are made in the kitchen, that you can't outrun a bad diet, and that ultimately if you want to get lean, it has more to do with your diet than exercise, hear me out on this. So while it may be true that your diet is going to be the primary driver of how much you weigh, how you look at that weight is going to be greatly affected by your workout program. Furthermore, the way that you exercise can create a synergistic effect, i.e. that the sum of the parts, or the sum is greater, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So each component of your workout can be either hindering or facilitating your diet, and vice versa, right? So you could be doing a workout and eating the wrong diet. So you could be doing a workout for performance and eating a diet for aesthetics, or you can be trying to work out and lose body fat and eating a diet for performance and just eating less of those calories. So before we get too much further into this video, I want to do a little bit of a story, a personal story. Actually, the story of how I got into fitness to begin with. So believe it or not, I did not start out as a kid who was interested in sports, athletics, fitness, any of those kind of things, right? I would much rather sit around drawing pictures, building things out of wood, making stick forts in the woods, playing with G.I. Joes, those kind of things, right? Being though that I was homeschooled, my mom wanted to, partially for socialization aspects and partially also for the physical fitness aspect of things, she wanted me to get into sports. And so when I was about 9 years old, she got me into Taekwondo and she got me into soccer. And by the time I was 11 years old, I had decided I'd kind of gotten motivated on my own and started creating my own workout routines. In the beginning, these workout routines primarily consisted of running and calisthenics, so bodyweight exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, running. And this is very true of how a lot of people approach their fitness routines in the beginning. And like many people who are starting out on their fitness journey, I basically exercised until I burned off the fuel that I'd eaten in the previous meal, right? And so my workouts were a reflection of my diet rather than the other way around. How you want to be working out is figuring out, okay, what performance metrics am I aiming for, right? Or what aesthetic metrics. So am I trying to build more muscle? If so, how do I design a workout program that's going to help me build more muscle? If I'm trying to run a faster 5K, how do I design my workout program to run a faster 5K? You know, if I'm trying to do a longer long jump, how do I design my workout program to help facilitate that goal, right? And then your eating should facilitate whatever your workout is, right? But I, like most people, when they start working out or they start running or doing whatever because they're like, hey, I want to lose a little bit of body fat, I want to get a little bit leaner and stuff, so I'm going to go out there and start running to essentially burn off the calories that I ate before. And so your workout becomes the primary goal being, hey, to burn off the calories that I ate so that I can go eat more calories. So by the time I was 15 years old, I was regularly, several times a week, running for a few hours at a time, usually like 2-3 hours, sometimes more, playing soccer, playing basketball, generally just being physically active, and I'd also run 3 miles a couple days a week as well. Then when I was towards the end of year 15, my dad retired from the Marine Corps and moved us from Southern California to the south side of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So in this neighborhood, there was only maybe 2 families in the neighborhood. We're kind of in a rural community, right? So it's probably like a half a mile down the road or whatever to get to the house or something like that. And there was only 2 other families in the community that had children that were around my age. And these kids weren't really into fitness like I was, or sports or anything like that. Every once in a while we'd play some football or something like that. But other than that, they didn't like playing basketball. Definitely weren't into soccer. It wasn't as popular as it was in California. And so I found my sports outlet by getting into long distance running. And it was a great environment for that, because you're running by farms and you got forests and woods and grassy meadows and all this kind of stuff. It's a beautiful environment for doing distance running activities. And by the time like the end of my 16th year, I was up to running about 55, 60 miles per week, including the morning run with a dog. And I really enjoyed doing this, but I ended up getting a back injury, right? So I get a back injury, I can't run, and so I started riding my bike, and then the snow comes around, and so I decided, hey, let's start doing some weightlifting. And I actually really fell in love with the process of weightlifting, and the combination of drastically reducing my energy expenditure combined with eating a little bit more protein and consistently lifting weights by the time I was graduating high school, I had built up to about 175 pounds, so about 30 pounds of gain from 145 pounds as a long distance runner. Now, second hammer drops because now I developed some really bad digestive issues. And I really had to make this choice every single day between feeling miserable if I would eat food or having to deal with hunger if I didn't eat food. And as a consequence, over the next 2 years, I lost all the gains I had made through powerlifting. So it took me about 10 years of trial and error, seeing various different health professionals, to finally start to piece together and fix up my body so that I could have a halfway normal life. And actually it was about 2013, 2012 when I actually got to a point where I didn't actually feel miserable every single day of my life. And that was a great feeling, to just feel like I could go through a day and not feel, just in misery, and it was a great feeling and stuff, but it took a lot of time. But the benefit of this prolonged period of suffering was that it made me more disciplined, and this is actually how I got into natural bodybuilding and things like that, to build myself back up, because as a 6'1" individual and weighing 145 pounds is quite emaciated, right? And unless you are elite marathon status, some of those guys are pretty slender like that as well, but I personally didn't feel good. My knees hurt every day. I couldn't sleep most nights. I had brain fog, a lot of these different issues. But the process disciplined me to go and start studying out and figuring out some of my own issues and stuff. And this was back in about 2005 when I started getting into this stuff. And at the time, there wasn't all this information online freely available about, how many calories you should eat, how to count your macros, all the exercises and stuff. There was maybe by the time I actually found YouTube, because I think YouTube came about in maybe 2006, 2007 or something, and I didn't discover it until late 2009, 2010, maybe even, like 2009, maybe 2010 or whatever. And so my resource was going down to the library, finding there were a few bodybuilding blogs and stuff that you could read through, and I had to really kind of piece through all this information, and it was really revolutionized my approach to exercise and diet. And I discovered so many things that I was doing wrong, and it changed my perspective on the approach to exercise as a means of burning calories, as opposed to exercise as a means for enhancing performance and using your diet to dictate how lean you get. So as my perspective shifted and I started eating smaller meals more frequently, eating balanced meals with enough protein and a balance of carbohydrates and fats in each of these meals, I was able to build back all the muscle that I lost and then some, even though I wasn't doing a lot of actual intensive strength training, right? Because I still didn't feel that well, but just simply the process of that I was young and I was eating properly allowed me to gain this muscle mass, right? And of course, life is not going to give you the ideal circumstances to pursue your goals. Rarely, if ever, will it do that. And it was no different for me. So trying to get these meals in at regular intervals and stuff was very difficult. It was still the culture back then, as opposed to now in 2024, where it seems very laid back and and stuff like that. But at this time, it was very much go, 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 go. And so you very rarely had the freedom to eat at the times that you wanted to eat. And so over a period of time, and also in combination of the fact that I was doing, I also did some manual labor jobs during this time, I really developed an appreciation for hybrid and a hybrid athlete style of training. This is kind of before it was really in vogue to talk about hybrid athlete stuff. I mean, hybrid athlete stuff has been around for many, many years. I mean, as far back as the ancient Greeks and stuff, right? And when you think about it, the military basically trains in a hybrid manner as well. It's basically how you're training to have a balance between, strength and endurance, right? Which is, when you think about most sports, unless they are purely strength and power sports, most sports require you to be somewhat strong and also have endurance. And so maximal strength is less important for that. And so my approach to my workouts and stuff changed a little bit based upon the health problems that it had, and then also based upon just the environment that I found myself in. And so over the past, 17 years of this journey now, as it's been, I basically distilled down the metrics whereby to measure an effective fat loss workout, right? Because, obviously you could just do strength training and put yourself in a calorie deficit and you could still get lean. I mean, a lot of bodybuilders do this. You can do strength training and do some cardio and be in a calorie deficit with your diet or whatever, and that can also help you. But the problem is with these things is that they tend to be take a lot of time, right? So you'd be doing like an hour of lifting in the morning, and then or doing 45 minutes of cardio in the morning, and then doing an hour at night, or vice versa, right? And so you're almost doing 2 hours of working out every single day, and it takes up a lot of your time, right? And so what I've found is that there's 4 key things, and how you want to construct your diet or construct your routine. As long as it fits within these metrics, you're likely to get very good results. So number 1, am I doing something to stimulate muscle growth, or at least maintain my muscles, right? And I'm going to touch more on these in more depth a little bit later on in the video, but I just want to cover on all of them, right? Number 2, am I doing something to release stored fat? Number 3, am I doing something to actually burn the fat that I've released from storage? And number 4, is my diet facilitating the work that I'm doing in the gym? Okay, so point number 1. Point number 1 is, am I doing something to stimulate muscle growth? And even if your goal is not to be a bodybuilder, even if your goal is not to have these big muscles and stuff, and by the way, I mean, it is 2024, so we should all be aware of this by now, but it is extremely hard to build massive amounts of muscle, especially if you're staying relatively lean at the same time. What usually creates this thing of being too bulky or something is where you are building muscle and you are retaining the fat that's already over the muscles. There's many people which we call like skinny fat, right? They're skinny, but they don't have actually a lot of muscle mass, whereas somebody who's a little bit bigger and may actually seem, oh, that person a little chubby or something like that, they might actually be just as lean as this slender person, and thereby just as healthy as this slender person, because this slender person is skinny, but their muscle to fat ratio is too high, right? I remember that there was a gal when I was doing a personal training internship at Gold's Gym years ago, right? And she would run like 5 miles every day on a treadmill, right? And she was very thin and everything like that, and yet her body fat percentage was like over 20%, which, For a woman who's not doing any activity, that might be fine, right? But for an athlete, female athletes and stuff, being more around that 15% range is a little bit better and stuff. So she was doing all this stuff, and if you look at the fitness models and stuff, female fitness models, a lot of times those people are down at like 7% body fat when they do their photo shoots and everything. It's just to give you a perspective. So if you're just doing exercise and you're burning off calories, if you burn off enough calories, because we know to lose weight you need to be in a calorie deficit, right? So that can either come from from eating less food, doing more exercise, or a combination of the two. But if all you do is just burn more calories off and you're not doing anything to give your body a signal to support its muscle mass, then what's going to happen is you're going to lose muscle and you're going to lose fat at even rates, and you're going to end up like that girl, very thin and slender, but not very lean, not very healthy. So the second piece is exercise that releases stored fat. And you might be thinking, well, what the heck is that, right? Because we finished saying that, you can't outrun a bad diet. Abs are made in the kitchen and this different kind of thing. Well, this comes down to two different kinds of fat. You have visceral fat, which is the fat that's stored around your viscera, so your internal organs, right? And then you also have the subcutaneous fat, so the fat that's just underneath your skin, right? And that is the fat that is going to obscure your muscle definition. It's going to make it so you can't see definition in your stomach muscles, things like that, okay? And so when we're talking about subcutaneous fat, this fat underneath your skin, yes, that fat is highly like losing that kind of fat is going to be primarily related to your diet, primarily, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, on the other hand, visceral fat, due to its location around the organs, your internal organs, and also because there's more beta-androgenic receptors, so more receptors for things like testosterone and human growth hormone and adrenaline and all this kind of stuff to help mobilize things, right? Due to its location there, where you have those receptors and you also have a lot of heat, that when you do high intensity forms of exercise, so things like if you're pushing a weighted sled, if you're hiking up and down sets of stairs with a weighted pack on, if you're doing sprints down the road, if you're doing Olympic lifting, if you're doing jumping and things like of that nature, even doing like very heavy squats, very heavy deadlifts, things where you're really jacking up your heart rate really high, you get a lot of burning and fatigue in the muscles and stuff. These kind of exercises, think of a typical CrossFit workout, right? Those kind of exercises are great for releasing or mobilizing that stored fat around the viscera, right? And then gets into circulation in your bloodstream. And that's why the second component, or not the second component, but the third component is actually burning the fat. So you've released this fat, it's circulating around the bloodstream due to all that heat and stuff, right? And the adrenaline. But if that's all you do, it could just circulate around and then just get redeposited back in your fat cells. So then what you want to do is actually burn it. And this is where your low intensity forms of exercise, like, going for a jog, walking, those kind of things can be beneficial, but they're not going to be beneficial if you haven't first done something to stimulate muscle, right? So you want to have the combination. This is why in my hybrid strength programs and what makes them super efficient is we have something to stimulate muscle, right, and strength, and we front load that at the beginning of the workout when your energy levels are the highest, when your glycogen levels are the highest, right? And then after that, we put in something to help to release stuff. So there's metabolic stuff, maybe power stuff, jumping, sprinting, sled pushing, Olympic lifting, kettlebell swings, all this kind of stuff, right? Maybe even boxing, kicking, a heavy bag, those kind of things, right? And then after that, followed up with maybe some traditional bodybuilding isolation movements, biceps, curls, maybe even some multi-joint movements like rows, pull-ups, things like that. And then at the very end of it, maybe hop on a bike and do some slow spinning, go for a 20-minute walk, or whatever the case may be, to use that fat that's been released and mop it up with low-intensity exercise. And then, of course, this is not going to work if your diet is not facilitating what you're doing, right? So there is a difference between eating for performance and eating for aesthetics, right? If you're trying to eat for performance, you want to eat at maintenance calories or slightly above so that you have plenty of energy. And this is where a lot of guys get this wrong, is that they think, oh, if I do this really hardcore workout, I'm going to burn a lot of fat. Actually, if you're able to do these really long extended, workouts where you're, doing all this hardcore activity that, kind of boosts your ego, because you're like, man, look at all this stuff I'm able to do. I'm jumping so high and I'm lifting all this weight and all this kind of stuff. That's exercising for performance. If you have the energy to do that, you're actually not in a state where you're actually going to be shedding body fat, right? Or at least not very much. You might be shedding some of that visceral fat, but if you want to get really ripped and shredded, then you need to be in a state where you actually don't have the energy to do that kind of stuff anymore. And you have to be doing the low intensity stuff. That's how you get super, super, super lean, is by being in that state of depleting the glycogen, right? Depleting the carbs out of the system with the high intensity stuff, because you stimulate it to get the muscle growth factor in there. You did the power work to get your adrenaline up, your human growth hormone up, ramp up the heat production and the metabolites and all this kind of stuff. And then you did a little bit of targeted bodybuilding work for a little extra hypertrophy. And now you're doing something to, basically mop up all that fat that's circulating around. Problem is, though, if you're eating a diet that's going to allow you to go and run marathons and participate in the CrossFit Games or something, you're not going to actually get into that state at the end. It's going to take you will be like, man, I got to go run 6 miles once I get done with this thing to actually get to that state. So a smarter way to do this, and more efficient way, rather than and also, like, if because the number one excuse I hear for people saying I can't work out regularly is I don't have enough time, right? So if you don't have enough time, you don't want to be doing something where it's like you have to take 2-3 hours to do it. And this is why I think, like, a lot of these guys, it's an all or nothing thing. It's either I'm going to be doing these hardcore workouts that I was doing for, like, football or basketball training or soccer training or whatever it was back when I was in high school or college, or I'm not doing anything at all, right? Because it's a lot about the glory of, look at how hard I'm working out and stuff. But if you actually just want to be above average strong and be lean at the same time, then you don't need to do all that. And you don't need hours and hours to do it. What you need is the things that I talked about. You need something to stimulate the muscle. You need to release fat from storage. You need to mop up that fat from storage. And then most importantly, you got to have that diet that's going to facilitate that. Because if you're eating too many calories, too much carbohydrates, too much fat, just too many calories overall, it's going to take you hours and hours to get into that fat burning state. But it doesn't take you hours and hours to stimulate muscular growth. Okay? You can get a great muscle building workout in 45 minutes. If you did it every day, you could get it in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? You could have your whole hybrid strength workout done in less than an hour, including the cardio and everything at the end. And provided you are eating the proper diet to facilitate all that, you can get that really lean muscular body and still be, lifting decent numbers and everything like that. So you got to consider, what are my goals? Am I trying to perform? Do I want to be in the CrossFit Games? Do I want to run a marathon? Am I trying to be a competitive power lifter? Then if that is your goal, then yeah, you're going to need more time to do that. But if your goal is just to look good on the beach for summer, be above average strong, then you definitely don't need hours and hours of training, as long as you're disciplined with how you're eating and you work out in the proper way. So guys, if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more content related to workout design, whether it's for building muscle, losing body fat, avoiding injuries, and working around injuries should you sustain them, then consider subscribing to the channel by hitting the button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And we'll see you all next time for more health and fitness information.